The Adventures of Batman.
Welcoming you to the new adventures of Batman.
Welcome to episode 39 of Batmanimation, a Batman on Film podcast, revisiting the animated adventures of the Caped Crusader. I'm senior contributor Javi Trujillo, and returning alongside me this episode is none other than Darwin Cook's dance model for the opening credits of Batman Beyond, Patrick Johnson. Patrick, how's my favorite futuristic raver? Are you ready for the holiday season to begin?
Yes, sir. My toes are still sore from that dance sequence. I appreciate you bringing that up for everyone, embarrassing me right on the spot to begin the show. No better way to start the show.
Exactly.
But I am ready for the holiday season. And you?
We are getting there. My fiance 2 days ago started putting up her Christmas village, which is an elaborate process where we had to take one of our IKEA bookshelves and take everything out, turn it to its side, put it in front of the other shelving unit. So it makes like this giant landmass in the side of our living room
Wow.
that she then covers with like a snowy looking tarp and then sets up her little Christmas village and tries to organize it for this year. And it's the first time that she's had this particular space the way it is.
Right.
So she's got to figure out a new setup for her, because before we had like a glass coffee table and she would kind of arrange it with some of the bookshelves, but this is the first time this new configuration. So it's been interesting watching her work. That's like phase one, and then phase two will put up more decorations, and then phase three will be the Christmas tree.
Excellent.
But yeah, that's her thing. Like I have my statues that she's gotten me over the last 11 years that we've been together, and then I reciprocate by getting her these little Christmas village house things that are, some of them are the same price as some of these like Batman statues that she's gotten me over the years. So
Is it Department 56?
I forget what it is. It's the Michaels brand for the most part.
Understood.
I forget what they call it.
Well, yesterday was my wife's birthday. And
happy birthday to her.
Yes. Happy birthday. And she decided to work and take today off because we're going to see a play later. But while she was gone, I decorated the entire house, and she came home to Christmas Wonderland. So she was very happy. She was very happy about that.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. Good on you.
We had fun. Scored some points to keep me out of the doghouse.
Exactly. Well, we bring up the holiday season because we're here to talk today about a holiday favorite, one I revisit every year, and that's the episode Holiday Nights. So,
Woo-hoo.
Depending on how you think of it, this is season 1, episode 1 of the new Batman adventures, or it could be seen as season 4, episode 1 from Batman the Animated Series on your old DVD sets, or it's Batman the Animated Series season 3, episode 1 on HBO Max, or on, I think it's the Blu-ray box set. If you get the whole complete deal, this one is the start of like season 3. So are you confused yet?
I am. Let's start over.
It's it originally aired on Kids WB September 13th of 1997. But much like the last time you and I recorded an episode, this isn't just coming out of the ether. This is actually based on a comic book. The comic in question is the Batman Adventures Holiday Special #1, which had a cover date of January 95, but was actually released December 6th, 1994.
Wow.
So we'll get into that in a little bit. The synopsis is the heroes and villains of Gotham City have various adventures during the Christmas holiday season, which short, sweet, and to the point. And of course, this being tied in with Batman the Animated Series, or however you want to look at it, we have Kevin Conroy as Batman Bruce Wayne, Tara Strong as Batgirl Barbara Gordon, Matthew Valencia joins the cast as Robin, Mark Hamill as the Joker, Ron Perlman as Clayface, the recently departed Arlene Sorkin as Harley Quinn, Diane Pershing as Poison Ivy, Bob Hastings Commissioner Gordon, Mary Lou Henner returns as Veronica Vreeland briefly, Robert Costanzo Detective Bullock, Leanne Shermer as Renee Montoya, and of course the credits for the episode are written by Paul Dini, directed by Dan Riva, but of course a lot of this comes from straight lift from that comic book.
Correct. I was surprised that there was no written by credit in the credits for Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett.
Yeah, and I forgot to. I didn't notice anything in the end credits either, because there are a few episodes of the animated series where it doesn't mention in the opening credits, but in the end credits they'll give like a special nod to like story or whatever, to like Denny O'Neil for like the Ra's al Ghul stuff, and there's a couple other ones like A Bullet for Bullock where they mention like at least the writers of the source material, but I don't think they did on this one.
I did see that it says based on the comic book written by, and then there's a couple names, but they don't actually give the writing of this
Episode,
right?
Okay.
To a particular writer.
Hmm.
So there is something at the very end. I had to pause it. It was a blink and you miss it.
Yeah.
Credits go by so quickly.
I must have missed it, as I was like, I must have been looking at the wrong section then, because I didn't see it at all.
You'll see it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So the first story opens across the street from Joe's Tavern on December 22nd. It's adapting the Harley and the Ivy, which takes place December 11th in the source material. I have thoughts on that, but Harley and Ivy are 22nd in the episode.
Right. Okay.
Harley and Ivy are hiding out in a dump of a room at the Gotham Hotel. Harley's depressed that they're hiding out there with no presents, fun, or tree. So, Patrick, what do you think of Harl Ivy? Because this is something that obviously had to come from this show. Not this particular episode, but this show, because Harley was a creation of Batman the Animated Series. What do you feel about the relationship, how it started here and then has now branched into comics and other forms of animation?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was an episode previous to this called Harley and Ivy, where
Yes.
they break out of prison together, and they sort of team up there. But now I think you're right. This is where they are together and living together, and then they go on crime sprees together. I think it worked really well for this cartoon. I enjoy this version of Harley Quinn, and I enjoy this version of Ivy, and I thought it worked really well for, especially for the segment they're in, for the shopping spree. And you?
Yeah, I think chronologically we had the Harley and Ivy episode. Then they went off and did some separate adventures. And then this is like the first time I think we see them reunited.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think that the more romantic aspects of the relationship, that's not something that came until much, much later. But the genesis of them even being like a couple as friends even, obviously came from here, and I like them together, be it just as gal pals or the more intimate relationship that they have in the current comic books and in the Max show, Harley Quinn, which I totally forgot about and haven't finished the last half of the season. We've just been so busy, so I have no idea where they currently stand in their animated relationship, but I enjoy seeing them together. I think they make a good pair, especially where it started from, where Ivy was trying to help Harley realize the toxicity of her relationship with the Joker. So,
correct.
It's nice to go back to the beginning with this episode.
They're such polar opposites too, which makes it fun. Harley, of course, is more carefree, easygoing, likes to have fun, and Ivy is always angry. So I enjoyed it, especially the little bit with the Christmas tree.
Yes. Yeah. So the scene shifts over to billionaire Bruce Wayne, surrounded by women at a party, chatting with Veronica Vreeland, the former Harley hostage in Harley's Holiday. Now, this is our first glimpse of new look Bruce. His hair slicked back. He's ditching the brown suit for a more debonair black one. Um, First, I want to mention that this episode, this time watching it for the show, hit differently. Knowing that Kevin Conroy and Arlene Sorkin aren't with us.
Hmm.
It was a little bittersweet this time. It's still weird to think that Conroy's passed and that Harley too. And second, Conroy still has that slick Bruce voice. Like he still has that softer, more suave tone that I feel like he loses it as the series progresses. Like we lose the differentiation between Bruce Wayne and Batman, especially once Batman Beyond comes out. Then I think it loses it all together because obviously in Batman Beyond he's not Batman anymore, but that gravelly tone I don't think ever goes away when we jump forward to appearances in Justice League or in the Arkham games.
Correct.
What do you think of this redesign and just Conroy's performance in this episode?
I think the performance is consistent with what he did before. I like the redesign of Bruce Wayne. The blue eyes, I think, is a new, or there seem to be more crystal. I can't remember exactly how his eyes looked in the first 3 seasons, but he looks thinner. He
Yeah.
looks a little more in line with what I would have liked to seen in the first 3 seasons. So I like the redesign. I think this is an improvement on Bruce Wayne. But
Yeah.
the Batman, I do like. I have mixed emotions about the Batman outfit because I really liked the way he looked in the first 3 seasons. I like the big black bat, but I grew up with the yellow oval, so I like them both for different reasons at different times. This was a bit of a shocker when I first saw this. I wondered why the changing of the design happened.
I
And
mean,
you,
it was 97, so
Mhm.
internet is not the easily accessible, vast, catalog of information. It was a little bit harder to come by stuff like that. Um, and definitely access was a thing too.
Correct.
I don't really it's hard to think back and remember because well, how did you first see this episode? Did you watch it like the year it aired or did you catch it later on DVD?
I did watch this episode when it aired. I watched a few of the episodes, but I was working a lot and couldn't watch them when they all aired, and eventually got caught up whenever they released the DVDs.
Yeah.
About you?
Yeah, I feel like back in that era it was hard to know when a new episode was coming out or when the one you hadn't seen was coming out, especially being like syndicated. So I don't know. I don't think I watched this on the original release day, but I definitely saw it on television before I got like the Publishers Clearinghouse or Random House, whatever it was that had the original VHS tapes that did the
You
whole series before, selling those to get the DVDs and then selling those to get the Blu-rays.
you know, I never had the VHS. I had some character-centric VHS.
Yeah,
Do
I
you remember
remember
those?
those.
It would
Yeah,
be like a Robin or a Joker
or
or a
Riddler,
Batman,
I think they had one. I think.
Correct. I had a few of those, but I didn't get the big. I know the one you're referring to, the big box set VHS.
Oh man, it was a beast having all those tapes. But I don't feel like I saw this one first. I feel, at least for this season, I feel like I saw other episodes before I got to this one. Not that there's really continuity here, especially because we have Robin later on, but we don't get his backstory until the next episode. Um, but I I definitely caught it on television, and uh, I liked what I saw. I thought it was interesting to go back to like, oh, the year one look where he ditches the oval and it's more black. It felt novel and fresh at the time. And then when Detective Comics kind of mirrored that, like I was excited by it. And now it's 25 years later. I'm like, I miss that yellow oval. Like it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
The blue and gray isn't practical. It doesn't make sense. But there's just the part of me as I get older that I miss the Batman visuals, I guess, of when I was a kid. And
Right.
at least I have World's Finest that I can go to and see that again in brand new stories.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the first 3 seasons of the animated series, did you view Batman's outfit as being blue and gray or black and gray?
Dark blue and gray.
Dark blue and gray. Okay.
Yeah.
I've always viewed it, and Bill and I had this discussion recently, as being black, but the lighting
Makes
will
it
hit
blue.
it, makes it blue, right? Almost like there's a blue lights all the time in Gotham or something like that. I guess it's up to, debate as to whether or not it actually is blue. But I remember when the action figure came out, Batman Combat Belt. That's kind of like the Batman toy for this show, at least the first 3 seasons, and it was all black. It was black and blue with the yellow. I mean, black and gray with the yellow oval.
Yeah.
So I'd always seen it as black with the blue lighting. Just curious. I mean, it's a different interpretation for everybody, I guess.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like I don't think of Bruce Wayne as having blue hair, right? When you look at those older
Right.
comics or Superman,
Right.
like it
Mhm.
is like highlights, especially due
Correct.
to the printing. But
Mhm.
it's, I mean, I definitely can see your point, and I kind of agree with it to a sense. Just because if you look at like 60s and 70s Batman, where it's predominantly blue with
Correct.
little black lines, versus if you look at this show, the blue is more of a highlight. Um,
Cor-
so I definitely think that's a valid take
Correct.
on it. Yeah. And then of course, depending on the figure you
I think in
get,
the comics, oh, that's true. He could be Zebra Stripe for all we know.
right? Yeah.
I think in the comics, I understand why he was so colorful in the comics, especially because for so long they were just centered towards kids buying them. So I understand that the blue, even if he was supposed to be black and it was blue highlights, or if he was supposed to be blue, I think it appealed to kids.
Yeah. And
Certainly appealed to me, when I was a kid.
I want to say the DC collectibles when they finally started doing BTAS figures,
Mhm.
it's a black cowl and cape,
Okay.
and boots and gloves, and then like the interior of the cape has like the blue highlights or the blue color. Before, it's all the rage now to do like the cell shading figures, like Mondo has,
Correct.
their huge 12-inch line that are cell shaded, and the more recent, now that DC Collectibles is under McFarlane, those also have like trying to capture the highlights from the animation and add that lighting to the figures, which works to varying degrees.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Sometimes, I have one that has the blue interior of the cape, and he's all black and gray. But sometimes that cell shading you're referring to, sometimes it looks like a stripe in the costume. So you got to be real
yeah,
careful about how you design that.
and thinking back on it for the Batman animated series figures that I have,
Hmm.
I think I only have one that's actually like that light blue color.
Okay.
And all the rest of them are like black, be it,
Gotcha.
with the oval or without the oval in this more recent look that we're talking about for this episode. So
Right. Right.
that definitely adds to your side of things.
Well, it's not my side. It's just,
Well, your perspective. But
understood.
next we get the shopping spree montage, which is ridiculous, cartoony, and a lot of fun.
Right.
How did it strike you? Is this too goofy for the world of Batman, or does it get a pass as an animated episode?
Definitely gets a pass, especially with Harley and Ivy doing it. Particular standout is when they each have the hats on and point at each other and squeal.
Yes.
That's a funny funny bit. I think it works. I think it works for this, especially this being the first episode of a new iteration of these characters.
It's so funny because I feel like this season goes for that darker tone,
Mhm.
both visually and thematically.
Right.
But yet here we open up with this goofy Christmas episode, and it pulls it off well, in my opinion. Like I thought it was a lot of fun, and
I I think so.
it's definitely, this is straight from the comic. It has the montage on the page in the comic, but with the animation and the music particularly, it just brings it to life in a way that the comic tries to and can't.
Right, right. It's an interesting balance, like you're saying, with the darker and more mature themes that this season has to the goofy shopping spree we have here. Because there are some definite changes in the maturity level in this episode. Later on, we'll see with the Joker. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's an interesting balance. They try to walk that tightrope.
And it's always funny to me too because like they go to this major like department store that's stories tall, yet
Mhm.
there's nobody there other than the wait staff. It's like I don't know if they made Bruce call ahead and have him like clear the place out so they could have this uninterrupted because there's like no other customers here.
I'm glad
And
you noticed that because I never picked up on that.
or it's like, is this place like about to go out of business? Like, because later we see like there's a lot of people shopping for Christmas, but there's no one here.
Right.
And Bruce is forcefully signing the bills, and it's just Bruce,
Right.
Bruce,
Just Bruce.
not Bruce W. or Bruce
Right.
Wayne, just Bruce because
They know who he is.
animation and all that. Yeah, it's Gotham. He's spending a lot of money. It's Bruce Wayne. We know. We don't need a last name.
Right.
So Bruce fights off Ivy's lipstick, and after apparently falling to his death, emerges as Batman to give chase. And the climax is in a toy store, which feels like classic 50s Batman. What did you think of the animation in this sequence, given that a lot of this is unlit and in the shadows?
Well, I was watching the episode last night with my wife, and I asked her, "What what are they on top of? What are they climbing? Is that a giant toy display? I mean, it goes on for seemingly 100 feet in the
Yeah.
air. Is this the supposed to be a Macy's type of store that has just I don't know how many stories up? But I liked how dark and it was, but at the same time felt a little unchristmassy, felt a little spooky. I guess
Yeah.
should be well lit, should have Christmas music, but this is the new darker Batman, so I just had to go with it. Um, but overall, I liked it. And what about you?
I mean, unlike the previous store that they were just at, like this one's clearly closed.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I enjoyed the spooky ambiance of it, and I thought Batman looked really impressive in a lot of the scenes here. He's
Agreed.
definitely making use of the shadow element. We get to see the intro for the new Batman Superman Adventures opening. It composites a lot of images from this episode, one of which is Harley kind of dancing away from Batman. Uh,
Right.
so if you were around back then and could see that original intro, you would recognize this animation from that.
I'm I'm glad you mentioned that because the edition that I watched has the original Batman animated series intro
Yeah.
for this entire season, as well as season 3, which changed, I think, to the Batman and Robin adventures. And they had a different intro there.
Mhm.
I know I went and found an intro. I think I may have sent you a link
Yep.
that they had for this show. Was this when it originally aired? It was in the Batman Superman like sort of adventure hour,
Yeah,
or
that's my recollection, or at least how I saw it.
okay,
Um,
okay,
where it had that intro, and it was the season 4 the old season 4 DVD box set. I I don't know if it
That's
was just the first disc only, but I
Mhm,
don't remember because I don't have it anymore. But you could put it in, and it would
mhm.
ask you which intro you wanted: the classic BTAS or the new Batman Adventures opening.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's something that's not present on the current Blu-rays
You
or
know,
on
I have
HBO
those.
Max.
Okay. I know I have those old, DVD box sets, the ones that were really thick and had, like, 4 discs per season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and check that out because I had forgotten they gave that option.
So now it's December 24th, and we get to Jolly Old St. Nicholas, which is actually the first story in the comic, but in the comic it was set on December 3rd. Why do you think they switched up the order for the cartoon? Is it because Batman isn't present in this story?
Good question. Um, I think they wanted to start off the show with the popular Harley Quinn, and I guess they put this one second, and they wanted the climax with the Joker episode, and they wanted it all to get closer to New Year's, so they switched up the dates. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, I didn't come across any commentary or anything that explained why that happened. It's just my guess. Similar to you, it's just open with Batman and then have this story in the middle. And it's not like it's a bad story. It's really entertaining.
Yeah,
But you want to hook people in with Batman before you have him disappear for a little bit. So that's the only guess I have. Um
yeah,
to it. And
that's
I
what
thought this episode had a commentary, but it doesn't.
hmm. I liked
But
a Batgirl, kind of a solo Batgirl adventure in this. And it comes straight from the comic, so, um, and there are a few subtle changes to the comic. And I wanted to ask you about, um, they wanted to go, and add a little more in the adult theme. They wanted to show a little more skin,
mhm.
and so you get the quick shot of Batgirl changing, and you get sort of you see her like bare shoulder in her arm, and she's changing, and it's straight in the book the same. What did you think about that? And them wanting to show some skin.
That doesn't bother me because they weren't, being lascivious about it. Like,
Hmm.
it's clear that she's trying to change into costume.
Right.
I so I don't think it's like overly sexualized or anything like that. Like I don't think there's anything problematic with it. I just prefer the comic version more
Right.
because it's character-wise, it's more conscientious for Barbara to go into a changing room,
Hmm.
preserve her secret, preserve, because that could lead to Batman at some
Sure.
point too, or her dad. So, like I get how they were thinking no one's going to be paying attention to her,
Hmm.
but I prefer the comic book where it's kind of like a Superman element. Instead of a phone booth, she goes into a changing room. Like it makes sense
Yeah.
because she's in a department store. Like, sure, go to the changing room. And back then,
Hmm.
when security cameras weren't ever present and people didn't have, a video recorder in their pocket, like it makes a lot more sense. Like she could get away with what she does in the episode,
Hmm.
compared to today where it'd be like impossible. But I just like the sequence better in the changing room because then there's like the little added thing of like she, pricks her toe on one of the discarded needles from, the clothing and stuff. And it's just
Right.
a fun little bit.
Yeah. I agree with you. I like the way they handled it in the comic, and we can get to some differences, more differences in the comic later if you want.
Yeah. Uh, but the main thrust of this is Bullock and Montoya are undercover as Santa and an elf as Barbara goes shopping for her dad. There's been a rash of shoplifting at department stores, so the detectives are there on stakeout. And one of the things I like about this segment, I mean, all of them are pretty funny, but there's a lot of humor here. There's a kid telling Bullock that he's not the real Santa Claus, to which Bullock replies, "Sure I am. Want to see my gun?" And that was one of my standouts for me. What was your favorite part of this segment?
There's a couple. I love Bullock and I love Robert Costanzo. I remember him for the first time. I think it was Die Hard 2. Merry
Yes.
Christmas. He's got that voice. I mean, he looks like he could play Bullock in live action, at least back then. He's great.
That was a missed opportunity.
Oh yeah, I think he said later on in the episode when she says shoot the Santa and he turns to Montoya and he's like, you wouldn't. It's real quick,
Yeah.
but he kind of steals the episode, or at least this segment, for me a little bit because I just enjoy him so much. So he's my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah. I agree with that. And since this is the first episode of this new look, we're going to get a lot of talk about the different redesigns.
Mhm.
I don't feel like Clayface was changed all that much. In the book Batman Animated, the only note is that Clayface becomes rounder. Did you pick up on that? Did you notice that at all when you watched it? Or does it just look the same to you?
I noticed more of the coloring. I thought that he was more of a brownish, grayish tone. Rather, he was a little more orange in
Mhm.
the first 3 seasons. I would
Okay.
have to go back and check, but that's what I saw. And his head wasn't quite as hmm. It's like it was like you said rounder, but it was much wider in the episodes I remember before this one, like Mudslide and stuff. With the top of his head being smaller, but it tapered out to his
Okay.
shoulders almost. I did see a bit of a change in his head, but no, I didn't pick up on being technically rounder. Do you? Am I off with the color there?
No, I think you've got a good point there. I just trying to think of because of all the Clayface episodes, which I typically really enjoy.
Mhm.
This one probably gets the most rewatches from me, so it's the one I think of in my head.
Right.
But just kind of going back to it, just with the color palette change for everyone in this show,
Mhm.
and the change in animation, yeah, it does seem like it is all the colors are more muted than they were prior when it was on Fox, like across the board.
Do you think that hurts the contrast a little bit? Contrast to the dark painted black backgrounds you got in the first 3 seasons, so you would get these bright colors to really stand out. And now, like
Yeah.
you're saying, it's everything is a little more muted. So you think it hurts that
Yeah,
from
I
an
think
artistic
I
point of view?
I think it does, and, when it first came out, it was fresh and exciting, and I liked it, and I thought this animation style was better,
Mhm.
but going back over time and rewatching them, I actually tend to like the animated series look more, the way they did it. It's weird too because the being on Fox and then WB, where I lived, where I grew up at, like that the video quality was not great on that channel. It was always a little snowy.
Okay.
It wasn't ever really clear, at least until, the early 2000s when high def television came in
Right.
and signals got boosted. So I think there was a lot that I missed or couldn't appreciate as much back then that now that we've had these, particularly now where we've got these remastered Blu-rays
Mhm.
where I can appreciate the animation so much more. And I tend to like the first 2 seasons, I guess, if you wanna call it that, better than the more cleaner digital look we kinda get in Justice League and this season.
I'd have to agree. Totally. There's a almost, old school vibe to the first 2 seasons that I would compare to the Fleischer Supermans
Yeah,
that I
100%.
prefer. I mean, it's not exact. They didn't use rotoscoping techniques, but the animation, especially fight sequences, not might not be as smooth as the later seasons, but there's just something about it that is more appealing to me and my sensibilities. And that would be it. The I guess the kind of comparison to Fleischer.
Yeah. Batgirl makes her first appearance in her new suit, ditching the gray bodysuit for black, matching her comic counterpart more, at least from her debut. What did you think of the redesign and the recast of Tara Strong replacing Melissa Gilbert and Mary Kay Bergman? Did you notice it at all when it first happened?
Probably not. When I first, I I take that back. I do remember her voice being considerably different, but it didn't bother me, the recast, because Tara Strong, she does sound a little younger, and this version of Batgirl looks to be college age, and I think is college age, so it worked for me. I like Tara Strong. I think she's insanely talented. It
Yeah.
didn't bother me so much. The redesign of her costume I thought was really fun. I liked her costume from season 2 or 3, but I like this one too. What about you?
No, I was really pleased with the choice to go to the more comic accurate look at the
Mhm,
time. I mean, she did have the gray and blue in the comic
mhm.
proportions as well, but like her initial debut, the $1 million debut of Batgirl was in like that black suit. So it
Right.
was cool to see that come back. And I don't really know if I clocked the differences in the voice talent,
Mhm.
but because she's so prolific as a voice actor now, especially in like the DC universe where she's been Batgirl and Harley and just Raven, so many people. Like I just tend to think of her as Batgirl, even though Melissa Gilbert got there first.
Correct.
Um, so I enjoyed it. I like the look and I think she's a great Batgirl.
Yeah. I think either voice would have worked, but, her voice is a little sounds a little younger in this, and I believe that's what one of the things they were going with this season,
Yeah.
or trying to go, shoot for.
So, with wrapping up that segment of the episode, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. And we're back. The last story is adapting What Are You Doing New Year's Eve? So, no surprise, the comic and the show are finally matching on the date here, since this is like a New Year's Eve segment.
Correct.
Joker has interrupted a broadcast to intimidate the citizenry of Gotham with his plans. This later gets reanimated in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker as a flashback. Um, I felt like this was talking about the Joker. I felt like this was one of the more controversial redesigns. How did you like it?
I didn't, from the beginning. I didn't like the black eyes. I didn't like, the fact that he didn't have the red lipstick, which really made his mouth and his teeth, the contrast pop. Um, I didn't understand, especially the eyes. Well, both. Those are the two main things. The outfit and the kind of redesigned head was okay, but those are two things that I missed, didn't care for. What about you?
Lauer and I talked about this on our episode covering Joker's Millions. I like it.
Hmm.
I like the beady, dark eyes. It makes him a
I'm
little
sorry.
more. It's okay.
Yeah, and you might hear a cat yelling in the background. Um, I don't know what's going on behind me, but I have the door shut in my office. I swear.
I mean, Batman's for cats too. That's why we have Catwoman and Isis.
Yeah, that's true. So I
But
apologize to the
oh, no
listeners
worries, dude.
and you.
Uh, I like, I like the redesign, but I think it's better in Return of the Joker. Um, and the later versions of it we see in like Justice League. I feel like they merged both aspects of the two versions into like a perfect synthesis
Mhm.
by the time we get to Justice League. The original designs did have like the red lipstick,
Mhm.
like it was a thin line, and the book doesn't describe why it got omitted for animation. I think it is lacking that. Like the red smile, I think does hurt it a little bit. Um, so I don't hate it, but
Right.
it's not my favorite.
And you were okay with the black eyes, like, just being these black voids into nothingness?
Yeah, I like the slightly sinister aspect it gave it. But having said that, like I wish when we got to I was gonna say the Killing Joke. Um Now I'm blanking on Heart Mad Love.
Gotcha, yeah.
I wish that Mad Love had gone back to that original look. Um,
Agreed.
it feels like a missed opportunity that we didn't get to see it look a little bit closer to the comic.
I
Um,
believe I read that, um, Bruce Timm wanted him to have a lesser than human quality, which is where the black eyes came from. But I think it's a bit much. I think it goes kind of beyond and almost it just didn't work for me personally. It might
yeah,
work for some people. It was just a little off-putting.
I think like in a comedic aspect, it works sometimes really well. The cartoony eyes, but it also is missing something too.
Yeah.
And it was the first Joker animated figure that I got, so there's a little bit of a soft spot that I that I had that look. Um, but
Understood, understood.
you know, I can definitely see why people don't like it, because it is, uh, one of the more, obvious changes to the look.
Right.
The show omits, the crime scene of one Dr. John Erickson. It's possibly a little too much for a network cartoon, even though they do kinda lean into the violence more,
Mhm.
on this season, and it jumps to the big plan on New Year's Eve. Joker's gonna unleash a sonic bomb that'll kill everyone in attendance at Gotham Square. How would you rank Joker's plan, and what did you think of the Joker masks as a distraction?
I really liked the Joker masks, and I had a thought to the movie Joker, with Joaquin Phoenix, how everyone was wearing those
Oh,
masks. I thought that
yeah.
was I wonder wondered if, they took this idea and kind of, adapted it for there, or if it was just completely, random on their part. But I really liked the mask. The plot that Joker has to kill everyone is it works for what we're doing here in this, episode. Um, it's not as creepy as his Smilex gas when he leaves his although he does find a way, and I'm not sure if this was in the comic or in the episode, to make everyone die smiling because they all have his masks on. So that aspect of it I really liked. But there's something about the Smilex gas victims that and you do get that one picture of that, um, deceased individual, and, it just
Dr. Erickson, yeah.
yes, thank you. And it's creepy and it works. And this is the first time we've seen a dead body in this cartoon, aside from not counting Mask of the Phantasm.
See, I don't remember, was he in the cartoon? I thought they just mentioned him because they stay in Gordon's office. Did they actually show his body in the cartoon?
Oh no, just the photo, and he's obviously dead. The photo of
Oh,
his
okay.
face, and he's in that
Yeah.
grimaced smile.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I think you're right.
that was probably the compromise they came up with for the episode was to have it just be the photo because if they were pushing the more mature element, I'm sure Bruce Timm wanted to probably have a a dead body in there, and they said, "No." That's pushing it a little bit,
You've gotta
but the
wait
photo works.
till Batman Cape Crusader coming 2020 something, maybe.
We're all waiting in the
Yeah.
wings. The suspense is killing us, or is it? Are we worn out by this point? And it's like, well, we'll get it when we get it.
Oh, that's where I'm at. Like, we haven't
Yeah,
had
me too.
anything beyond that one image. It's like it'll come when it comes. Like I
Right.
still haven't finished Beware the Batman. I'm sure I'm missing a few Brave and the Bolds. Like I've got Batman content to watch that
Mhm.
I haven't seen if I need it. So I just want it to be on the same par as Batman the animated series. Like that's been for me the reigning champion animation wise. Even though shows that have come after have been good, like that one still for me is holding the crown. So if we can get a worthwhile challenger to that, I'll be happy.
I'm curious to see how mature it's going to be at this point, especially with it coming out on Amazon Prime. If it's going to
Yeah.
be PG-13 or if it's going to be bloody and have more
Lean more
violence
into
and
like
stuff.
the Invincible show where it's super ultra violent. I
I
mean, I
hope
don't
it's
think they'll go Invincible with it, but
let's hope not. I think that might be a detriment if it's just violent for the sake of violence rather than have it be appropriate.
yeah.
Because sometimes you get that with Invincible and some other shows like what's that superhero show on Amazon? It's kind of
The boys.
The Boys. Yeah, I know that's live action is completely different, but sometimes the violence is just so over the top in it,
Yeah,
and it can turn
definitely.
certain watchers off, viewers rather.
Yeah, I liked the Joker's plan overall, like because it
Mhm.
had shades of Batman '89, um, and his Three Stooges goons. I got a kick out of seeing those those henchmen. Uh,
Me too.
but even though this is out of sequence, at least story wise, from later episodes, this gives us our first look at Tim Drake as Robin. So I don't I don't remember if there was any, like, confusion, like, all of a sudden Robin's smaller in this episode compared to, like, the Dick Grayson version we saw.
Right.
Um, did you like the switch to Tim and the redesigned costume that he got?
I was okay with it. I have a question for his redesigned costume. Is this the first appearance of the all red costume, or is it the year one later from the comics? I'm not sure which came first because he had
Uh,
an all Tim had the all red costume, but there was no doubt in my mind that this was Tim Drake as soon as I saw him. I didn't think this was a redesigned Dick Grayson, although we don't get his reveal or his origin until the next episode. I didn't think this was Jason Todd or anything. And they did I don't think they called him Tim in this episode.
no, no, he's just
Okay.
Robin.
Mhm.
1 year later was 2008-ish?
Okay.
So, maybe it pulled from this. To me, my take on it was similar to Clayface. It was a more muted version of his traditional costume, which they adapted perfectly for Dick Grayson when, Batman the Animated Series launched.
Correct.
So Dick was more in Tim's suit, at the start of the show, and this was just like the smaller, darker version, because instead of having the green that we associate with Robin, it was just
Mhm.
black.
Right.
But I liked it, and I liked seeing, Tim in the show, but that meant that they omitted Jason Todd, at least for now, um, referencing the Batman: The Adventures Continue season 3 of the DC comic that's, recently concluded,
Right.
where we actually learned about Jason Todd. But the problem I had with Tim, problem is probably too strong a word, but, like, because they skipped Jason, they gave him some Jason-like traits, including his
Exactly.
origin story.
Mhm.
So he's not like Tim proper, he's more of an amalgamation of Tim and Jason.
Yeah, that always bugs me, and I think it bugs comic book fans, especially the ones that have been fans of Tim and Jason Todd throughout the years when they kind of combine them, mesh them into one. It's always a bit of an irritant, but I went with it. I understood that they didn't want to do I guess, the Jason Todd story at that time, or maybe it was
Yeah.
too rough to do for the cartoon at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an adaptation. They've got to adapt it to what works for their medium and the story they're telling. And if you want to take a multiversal approach, like
Mhm.
it happened the way you like that it happened in some reality. So,
Right.
um, the adventure ends with the Bell landing on Joker, which is echoing Harley's conclusion as well, with the tree landing on her. Did you appreciate this parallel, or was this like too cartoony, especially with the way Joker's splayed out at the end and he just has like that ouch?
I liked it, and the same thing happens with Clayface. It's something falling on top of them.
That's right.
His is an electrical line, and I guess Santa kind of falling at the same time. But I liked the parallels to all three. Kind of ties it together neatly, kind of like a Christmas bow.
That's a good observation. Yeah. And
Yes.
and to further, tighten that bow,
Mhm.
when we come to the epilogue, which in the comic was called "Should Old Acquaintances Be Forgot?" So I guess we're not done talking about the comic yet, because this is a separate story there.
Right.
Um, this is set at Joe's Tavern. So we're across the street from where the story began at the beginning of the episode, bringing everything like full circle, because we ending where we started.
Right.
So Gordon and Batman meet for their annual tradition of coffee at the end of the year. I I still don't know if I like this Gordon redesign. Like, he seems not frail, but definitely thinner compared to the more robust look of the animated series. How did Gordon sit for you?
Exactly the same. I thought
Okay.
it's most noticeable in his neck area. He
Yeah.
almost looks sickly, and I don't think that is a benefit or an improvement. I really liked his original design in the first 3 seasons. Don't care for this one as much. Yeah, he looks older, frail, just not quite as formidable physically to be the commissioner.
Yeah, the old Gordon felt very buff. Like,
Mhm.
it looked like he still was, like, weight training.
Mhm. He could
And just
knock you out with a firm right cross too,
yeah, like,
I would
he had
imagine.
very broad shoulders, and here he's more, like, just shrunken. And maybe
Agreed.
more in keeping with, well, no, not even keeping with the comic, because sometimes I feel like Gordon was a little paunchier in the comic. Um, but, like, at one point in the '90s, he has a heart attack from all his smoking, catches up to him, and even still, when he's recovering from that, he doesn't look the way he looks in this cartoon. So,
I would
I
rather
don't
him be a little overweight than totally
yeah,
underweight.
I don't hate it, but it doesn't sit as well with me.
No,
I don't know.
I have similar feelings with Gordon as I do with Joker. I don't think it was an improvement, whereas Bruce Wayne's design was an
Yeah,
improvement.
yeah. I would say I like the Joker redesign more than the Gordon one. And
I
again, I don't hate the Gordon one, but
right.
it's not my favorite either.
I can't pick one that I like more. They're
They're both
different
down there at the
levels.
bottom for you.
They're different levels of bad. That along
That's
with, Nightwing's mullet.
oh, yeah.
We won't get into that though.
Yeah, that's another episode. What did you think of Batman and Gordon's tradition?
I loved it. I thought this was, and you can feel Paul Dini's writing all over this. I really like how Batman has to tell the waiter that's enough coffee. He just like puts up his hands, like, he doesn't say anything, but
Yeah,
he gives the gesture.
yeah.
I wish it was a little bit longer, like maybe they had a little more of a discussion. Just for whatever reason, I enjoy their friendship as well as their partnership. But
The comic doesn't have it's not very long in the comic either. And at this point, we're pressed for a 22-minute runtime,
right,
so I can see why they wouldn't expand on it at all.
right. I have my copy in my hand. I'm flipping through to see it right now. Um, you're right. It's quick.
I like seeing Batman and Gordon as friends. I think the Dark Knight trilogy and the Batman use that really well to show that partnership. And that's not something we got a lot of in the Burton and Schumacher films. So
Right,
it's nice to see that in animation in some form.
right,
As in later series, like Gordon's not really as much of a factor when we start off with the Batman, the cartoon.
mhm,
That's more Lieutenant Yin. And then in Beware the Batman, it's earlier, so they're more antagonistic. Um, starting to build a relationship. So I like seeing that, they are partners in this. And in true Batman trademark fashion, like he disappears. Like they're literally sitting at a table. He's
right.
not standing in the corner of the office where you can just like he's literally a few feet away from him and somehow disappears and has paid the bill. Like
Exactly.
it's perfect and it's funny and it's just a great button to the end of the episode.
Right. It calls to mind the Dark Knight Returns discussion they have,
Yes. Yeah.
how he knows he's Batman at this point, and said, "You fooling us all those years drinking ginger ale and
Right.
stuff like that." They're reminiscing. Uh, I like both of these. I like this one and that one, but yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of a little bit.
I love that comparison. I didn't think of that, but that is spot on, man. What was your favorite arc of, we'll say, the 3? We'll throw the epilogue out, and what was your favorite of the 3 main ones?
Because we were both going to say the epilogue is our favorite part, right?
Probably.
That's a toughie. Mm, probably the Joker, if I had to pick one.
I think I would go Harley and Ivy
Gotcha.
as my favorite.
I can see that. I mean, I totally understand why. It's very
Yeah.
lighthearted and fun.
And it's different. It's not something that we get to see a lot of.
Correct. It is a fresh way to start this new um this new version of the show.
'Cause there's a handful of episodes where we see Joker with his big plan to do something.
Right.
And Harley and Ivy, that one is a little more offbeat, and you can't really get that kind of style everywhere else. Plus, it's a little more Christmassy, which I appreciate too. Because the Joker one, it's New Year's Eve, which is a great setting,
Right.
but and it is holiday nights.
Right.
So I mean, it fits in with everything, but I like having like more of the Christmas music and that of it. So that just gives it the edge for me.
Understood.
Um,
Completely.
did you miss the omission of White Christmas, which was the Mr. Freeze story from the comic?
I did not miss it because I like the idea of Nora Freeze surviving. And
Oh,
that's the case in the comic, is she has passed away at this point. And I think that's Mr. Freeze's complete motivation. Obviously, what is his motivation completely? That and revenge. Revenge! I must have revenge. Um, I'm quoting the guy from Batman '66 show.
I just rewatched that over this week. So
That particular episode.
yeah,
I think it's Sanders. Was that the name of the
yeah,
guy? Sanders. Yeah. I just remember
Dr.
him.
Chevelle, but now
Yeah,
he goes by Mr. Freeze.
right.
Yeah.
But that particular actor, I just remember that big revenge statement that he makes. But
I
anyway, I didn't mind the omission. I prefer Mr. Freeze having just a little bit of hope, a little bit of joy in the fact that his wife is still alive, and I believe she gets. They had to omit it because of Sub-Zero because they
Yeah.
revived her in Sub-Zero. Yeah. And you?
So I read this. I read the comic. I didn't know there was a comic until years after
Oh,
I
okay.
saw the episode. So it was something that I got in like, the back issue bins.
Mhm.
I was like, why did they cut this out? Because it's Paul Dini, Mr. Freeze. Like, why would you not have like this story? Because he was on such a roll with it. But
Mhm.
you're right. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Because if they killed Nora, if she died, after Sub-Zero, which is where this series would have taken place,
Mhm.
yeah, that kind of changes things. And
Absolutely.
then it changes his trajectory for later on in this season. And then, of course, Batman Beyond, which you and Bill did a good episode covering Meltdown, the episode where Mr. Freeze returns in the future.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't think about that. Like, oh yeah, if they would have put this in, it would have changed. Like, we wouldn't have some of those other episodes. So
Correct.
yeah. Are you a Christmas with the Joker guy or a Holiday Nights guy, or do you celebrate both equally when it comes to the holiday season?
I like them equally for different reasons, but I tend to kind of um, Christmas with the Joker is the one I probably watch more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I think um, I do like them both equally. And I'm trying to think of which one I watch more, but I probably do just watch them about as much as the other ones. Christmas with the Joker, though, I feel is slightly more iconic, just
Agreed.
because we've actually got a DC Collectibles figure from the episode, and then like there's even like Mondo has done like art prints where they parody the Bing Crosby holiday album,
Yeah, it's
except
fantastic.
they do it with the Joker, and it's oh, I wanted to get it so bad. I'm like, what am I going to do with this poster the other 11 months of the year? So, and also I don't have the wall space, but yeah, I think I might give that a slight edge.
Mhm.
But I also like the diversity of Holiday Nights, how we get to see more characters than we do in Christmas with the Joker.
Right. I love the little anthology episodes too. Very
Yeah.
similar to the one we were talking about earlier, Legends of the Dark Knight. Do you I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
No, no, I think we pretty much touched on all the bases. At least that's all I have for this episode.
Okay. Did you you said you got the comic much later?
A few years.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I collected the original 36 issues of the Batman Adventures when it came out, including this, and I read them all and I loved them. And here's where the story takes a very nasty turn. When I
Okay.
was in the early mid 2000, the aughts, that is, I worked for a store that sold stuff on eBay, and it was a storefront called I Sold It on eBay, and I sold my collection, which had the first appearance of Harley Quinn.
Oh no.
Had all of them, and then no, this is before they were worth anything. They were just I'd read them and they were just sitting around forever. And I have a tendency to get rid of things if I just haven't been using them and then for a while. And then I went back and got them all again and paid a lot more
Oh
for that
yeah.
first appearance of Harley Quinn. And it was I could kick myself for as many times as I've let expensive comics just slip through my fingers.
And you probably didn't get what they were worth either.
No, not even close. I mean, I got
That's
$100 for the whole stack,
yeah.
all 36 plus the annuals and that sort of thing.
I'm in that kind of season myself where I'm like, all right, I I have so many comics. I can barely keep up with the current stuff. Let it go, let alone going back and revisiting the things that I love, especially trying to do shows and everything. It's like I need to let some of this go. So I've been like going through and like, okay, am I ever going to read this again? Is this available digitally? So if I do feel the need, I can just read it for free, or
Right.
not for free, but through the service. And
Right.
as I hit the few issues that I have from that series, I'm like, nope, this one stays. Like I'm keeping the Phantasm annual and this Christmas special because they're awesome.
I wanted to the question I was gonna ask a second ago that I forgot midstream was, is this and Christmas with the Joker the only Christmas-related, Batman, cartoons that we have in this, show? Is there
There's
another
only
one?
there's only two that I can think of.
Okay.
If there's
Alright.
another one, then I've been skipping it for like the last 2 decades.
No, there's the only one I can think that's not Christmas related, but takes place in the snow is, the second Man-Bat episode where it's the wife of, the doctor who's the
Right.
Man-Bat,
Yeah.
or Woman-Bat, I guess.
I need to watch that again.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I can think of.
Okay. Where
Like
would
you
you
would,
rank this episode? What would
where
you
would I
grade
rank?
this, and then where would you rank it amongst your favorite BTAS episodes?
I would definitely give it an A, and it's in my upper tier, possibly because of the holiday elements. So I feel like I rewatch it a lot. Like
Mhm.
as we hit like the holiday season, like we are now, and it's like October, September, those are easy. It's easy to find like something new horror wise that we haven't watched or want to see again. And like holiday movies are a lot harder for me to like revisit all the time.
Sure.
Um, and it's like, well, what do I want to watch again this year? Because I feel like the selection's more narrow, at least when it comes to things I enjoy. So this will come up. This and Christmas and the Joker will come up a lot more frequently. Batman Returns,
Mhm.
Shazam, where I can sneak in something that's superhero-y, but but kind of holiday-ish, but not necessarily a Christmas movie, but takes place during. So this one gets rewatched a lot more than some of the other animated series episodes, which are equally as good, but they don't have the power of a holiday behind them for me to share with other people. Like that's more of like my own downtime watching. So
W well, that was
it's
going
up there
into
for me.
that was a I was gonna segue into my next question was how important is Batman, at Christmas time for you? Did you grow up getting Batman toys, Batman merchandise as presents?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this counts necessarily, but like I distinctly remember one Christmas I got the Superpowers Green Lantern and Hal Jordan,
Cool.
um, and the Batmobile, because what else do you get to go with a guy that can fly with a ring and a guy that runs faster than a car, but a car for them to drive around in?
So
I had already had Batman and Robin, so I mean it made sense, but it's always struck me as funny that I got the Batmobile and 2 figures that do not need a Batmobile whatsoever.
do you
Um,
collect the new McFarlane one line that's been coming out?
no,
Super
I've thought about it and I'm like, I wanna get these. I didn't like the Batman Hush one they did.
neither
I'm
did I.
really tempted to get the blue and gray one or the all black one because that matches the '89 look.
Mhm.
But so far, the only ones I've gotten were the classic Superman from the first wave, and I've left them in the box. And then I got 2 of the Wally West, one to take out, one to leave in the packaging. But
Nice.
that's all I've done so far.
Well, I got the Hush one just because it was I like the packaging, but
Right, yeah.
then I got the blue, all blue classic look, and then I got the all black. And then I have, I believe, the is the Wally West Flash the first Flash they released?
No, it was a Barry Allen one, and I'm not too
Okay.
keen of the chin strap that they have, that new 52 chin strap.
Yeah.
And compared to my old Superpowers Flash figure, which I still have, like the making the belt more of a sculpt seemed kinda weird to me, like an
Mm.
actual,
Yeah.
like, utility belt thing.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I guess the other one had it raised also, but it just seems more prominent, at least in the photos.
Right.
But I really dig this Wally West one because it's the darker. It's basically the same mold, but it's just he's got new wingtips and a darker color to him.
Right.
He just doesn't do the super kick runny thing that the '80s one did.
I have a friend that's collecting that entire line because he had the originals back in the day, and I guess doesn't have them anymore. And so he's having fun being nostalgic getting them. But I'm very picky about which ones I want to get. The Nightwing that's not quite Disco Nightwing, but not quite what we have now. It's a pretty interesting one with the yellow on the chest. I've thought about that one.
Yeah,
I'm a
where they
Nightwing fan.
reused. They used the inappropriate art, but just colored it to look like the Nightwing figure.
Right. So I might get that one, and then there is a regular Nightwing as well. But I would get a kick if McFarlane did a straight up Disco Nightwing. There are a few versions you can buy. There's a Mego version, and I have a Funko Pop. It even says on it Disco Nightwing. It says that's what it's called. I think that's pretty awesome.
Did you pick up the Batman Who Laughs?
The Funko Pop?
The superpowers.
Oh no, I didn't get that one yet. I do have the Funko Pop, but I tell you the truth, I've never read anything with the Batman Who Laughs. I have some comics with him in it, but I've never read it.
Oh wow. You missed out on that whole death metal. God, man, that was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it didn't quite speak to me. That stuff. But that's just me.
That's actually the if you have DC Universe Infinite Ultra, if you subscribe for like the year, they kind of give you like a gift. And like the first year that they've done it, it was you got the Death of Superman, like a deluxe trade paperback of it. And this year it was Batman the Man Who Laughs with it's like an exclusive cover only for DC Universe subscribers. And so I'm like, well, I already have the Superman book from last year, so I got the Batman Who Laughs this year, but
nice.
Not my favorite. But it's Snyder and it's Jock doing the art, so well, I'll have it on the shelf.
Sure.
But I'm a little burnt out on the Man Who Laughs, the Batman Who Laughs, so he can take a break. I'm good with that.
Yeah, speaking of the Man Who Laughs, that's a great little graphic novel.
That is a blind spot. It's been on my. I own it digitally. I bought it at some Comixology sale a long time ago, but I've been holding out to actually read it in physical first before I read it digitally. I decided, no, I want to have the physical experience, and it's been on my Amazon list for a while. So maybe this will be the year that I get it for Christmas.
So we both have a couple things we missed out on, huh?
Yeah.
Although yours is, well, I guess they're both done on purpose. So
it's on my radar, and I'm gonna get to it when the time is right and the stars align. So maybe bringing it all back to Christmas, maybe it'll be under the tree this year. So,
is your wife listening?
Maybe. I don't know. No, she's not. She's not.
Well, maybe Santa is.
Yeah, there we go. I've been good this year. Well, Patrick, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate having you on, man. It's always a good time talking with you.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Facebook, you can look me up, Patrick Johnson, or Instagram, Patrick Johnson 75, I think is my handle over there. And anywhere you get music, the C Flats. Before we go, I did want to give my letter grade on it. I would also.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I would also grade this as an A, just a solid A. Just no complaints, really. Even with the redesign, that's not enough to. It's not a nitpick enough for me to for it to change the letter grade at all. Yeah, this is a great episode, and if people haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. As well as picking up the holiday special. It is different because the holiday special is in the style of Batman the Animated Series and not the new Batman Adventures. But I recommend both.
Yeah, it's funny that two of the comics, when they got adapted, it got adapted to the new look. So while they're very, very similar,
Mhm.
story wise, down to dialogue, even maybe a little bit like the comic serves as a storyboard for the animation, like because of the different design choices, it is a little bit of a different experience, seeing it in the classic style in the comics
If
for
you had
both
to
this and Mad Love.
if you had to pick your favorite or what you prefer over the 2, I think I know which you might pick because you experienced it first, but which do you like the comic more or do you like the episode more?
Actually, I think I like the comic more.
So do I.
I reread it last night and this morning just in prep,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think I like it the comic more. Although the comic's missing the music for the shopping montage that I mentioned.
Mhm.
Uh I think overall though I like the comic better.
Yeah, I think it hits a little differently, and it's got that extra story in there, plus the design. I like and the interesting thing about the comic is this is one of the few times that the people that worked on the cartoon actually worked on the comic book. I
Yeah.
don't think I don't know of another instance. You have Paul Dini, art Dan Reba, and coloring by Bruce Timm. So you have it's closer to what you see on TV than maybe some of the other um, issues in this series, this original Batman Adventures series that coincides with the cartoon.
Yeah, and having Glenn Murakami and Kevin Altieri and Butch Lusick, yeah, having all those people participate in the comic makes it pretty special in my opinion.
Uh,
And because I saw the episode first, like I can't read the comic without hearing the voices,
mhm.
especially with the dialogue being the same. So it's like the best of both worlds because I can hear the performances and get these different visuals and the different costumes. So,
Right, right.
but
A,
yeah,
A is all the way around.
A's all the way around. So that should do it for this episode of Batman Animation. You can find me, of course, on BatmanOnFilm.com, reviewing Catwoman and Batman the Brave and the Bold and Batman and Robin and Batman Gargoyle of Gotham. So I need to get to work on that because we have a new issue coming out, I think next week. But that is going to be it for us here in the Batcave. I hope everyone has a happy holiday season, and we'll let announcer Rachel take us out.
Thanks for listening to Batmanimation, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the animated TV and film adventures of the Caped Crusader. Follow Batmanimation on Twitter @Batmanimation. Follow BOF on Twitter @TheBatmanOnFilm. Follow Jet on Twitter @BatmanOnFilm. For Jet and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Batman on Film, authoritative, definitive, the original, established in 1998.